That's right. I'm skipping the fusion. I don't think it's going to be worth it. And I want to tell you guys exactly why I feel that way. Does that mean you should skip it? Not necessarily. I think there's definitely some good reasons to do this fusion. And typically, I would too. But I have my reasons why not. Welcome, I'm the Deadwoodjedi. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video, and yeah, this is not the type of video I like to make. You guys know, if you watch my channel, if you follow me, you know I try to stay as positive as I can about this stuff. And I've tried to record a video on Ugir Worm Eater, I don't know, for at least 2 or 3 days now. And every time I try to do a showcase, it kind of just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't really work because every time I try to bring him in arena, every time I try to use his kit, it's just kind of a mediocre event. And as cool as I think his passive ability is, it's not cool enough to really think that he's ever going to get run on my team. Now, I say this and I'm a little hesitant because honestly, as much as I would like to do this fusion, I think it's good to keep a champion like this. And I'll tell you exactly why I think you should do this fusion, even though I'm skipping. I definitely still recommend doing it, and I'll tell you exactly why. But the problem is right now is that, one, he's not, in my opinion, a very good champion. And two, the biggest issue, I think, is that the event, there is zero forgiveness in it. You have to, and it's going to be really hard to get all the fragments. So for me, I don't see any reason to justify that. I don't make these decisions as like protest votes, right? I don't agree that in, this case that you should have to do every single event in order to complete this fusion. I think that's kind of bullocks, and I don't really want to get into that. But I mean, if you've looked at the schedule, you see literally every event, you can't miss it, right? All the champion chase, all the, the summon event that we have going on today, all the champion training stuff that's happening, all that stuff, you have to do all of it. And I'd never have issues with like the dungeon stuff, but there's not a champion chase portion to kind of offset it. There's not little areas that you can miss. And I just know myself, there's going to be a day I'm going to mess it up and I'm just going to forget something. It's like, why put myself through that? Now, like I said, I've tried to use this guy in arena multiple times. I built him out with double stone skin. I really try to utilize his skills as good as possible. And it's not like his abilities don't work at all. They do work to the degree they're supposed to. It's just that it's not really enough even with that. I have a couple teams that I've been trying to utilize them with a couple different ways, typically in a go second style team, because again, he doesn't bring any turn meter boosts. He doesn't bring any CC abilities, which makes him way, way less helpful as far as trying to get to the point where you can survive some stuff. See in here, I end up always somebody's dying on my team. Now, I always try to get him that increased accuracy buff to make sure his stuff works, because that's his A3, right? That's the skill he's supposed to be using. So I figured, why not use it? Except there's plenty of reasons not to use it. But here, we killed a champion, their Pytheon or their Duchess, who will have their Pytheon go here. He's going to revive everybody. And you're going to see it's just not nearly as effective as it should be. There he goes. We get that A2. Yeah, we strip all the buffs, but now they still take their turn. They still kill us afterwards. So again, I ask, what's the point? The skill just doesn't hit hard. And I've tried using it with big crit damage numbers on it. It just doesn't hit nearly hard enough. There's no CC in it, so it's just ineffective. And like, this champion has good stuff in their kit. It's not like the stuff in the kit is bad. The A1 is one of the best A1s, I think, in the game, right? Being able to strip a buff and place a block buff debuff on is incredibly useful. I think that's a really great for an A1 skill. I think that's actually really, really good, right? This is great. It's great. The fact he's HP based is really smart, but I have such serious issues with this champion. Even if the enemy's reviving over and over again, we're never dealing enough damage to knock them out. We're not controlling them enough with any CC skills to lock them out. And the A3, which brings in all these great buffs for your team, there's no turn meter boost, so you can't rely on that to help the rest of your team go first. Again, there's no CC skills, so it just becomes this kind of empty thing. And like, if you think about it, we're really only adding 2 buffs, right? We're only adding 2 buffs, increased accuracy in defense or attack. Like, it's not like we're getting this crazy amount of stuff. There's no block debuffs, which would be great. There's no cleanse ability, which would be great. There's no increased speed buff, which would be great. Not even increased crit rate or crit damage or anything like that. So it seems just a very weak ability in my mind. And the fact that he doesn't do good damage means that even in waves and stuff, I don't know how useful he is. That's of course talking about bosses and whatnot. Bosses, what are we going to do against the bosses out there in this game, right? None of them revive their dead allies. They just summon new ones, right? So his passive skill's not even going, it's going to waste on those champions. There's a lot of stuff in this kit that I do like. The fact that the increased defense or increased attack is going on a champion that's going to be their highest stat. I'm like, that's great. Yeah, let's up our damage numbers. I think that makes a lot of sense. I do love this passive ability in theory. If the skill was better, I think this passive skill would be amazing and provide a very clear counter to a lot of the meta champions that are out there, right? We're talking the Duchesses, we're talking the Pythions, we're talking even champions like Elva and Arbiter, all these revive champions that we see all the time in this game. You're getting a very clear counter to that with that ability, and I think that's really good for us. I love the buff strip. The weaken, of course, puts him prone to being sheeped from polymorph, which again, even if that does get changed in the future, I doubt it's going away completely. So that really becomes a negative skill there, right? So all the things that he's good for, I don't think he is, like in practice. And when I was looking at his kit, I was like, it's probably a mediocre champion, B+, B-, C+. I think he's worse than that. I think this is a C, maybe even like a D tier champion, simply because if I'm going to bring him into my team, I'd probably rather have some of the epics in this game. Honestly, I would rather have, I think this is fair. I would rather have, what's her name? Madame Saris, I think. Brings better debuffs than strips. Can actually do some CC, even if it's conditional, right? Void champion, so there's no affinity issues. There's champions that are just better, right? If I need increased accuracy, I'd rather bring in, who would I rather bring in? And you know what? We're going to go to the index to find these champions I'm going to start talking about here, because it's silly to me. But I'd much rather have, what's his name? Claude, Beast Feeder, right? We're getting increased speed and increased accuracy. That's way better, right? We want to go as far as a legendary style. Give me Yoshi, right? Got some CC in here, got some AC HP burn, got a stun. Like those are kind of champions that I want for this, right? So I just don't understand. I don't really see the point of this champion right now as constituted. Now, the reason why you want to do this fusion, is dollars to donuts. I would bet on this champion getting reworked, because I think not many people are going to do the fusion. The requirements are too high for a lot of players that are iffy. Champion's not good for those that aren't iffy. Right now, he's not going to help you if you're an end game player. And I think if you're early or mid level, there's not much in it either. So maybe I'm wrong about the numbers that, Plarium will see on the back end, but to me, this seems like a very underwhelming champion that needs major improvements in his kit. But I think those improvements are so simply done and so clear, I would see those happening, because I feel like this is a champion that can be a meta-altering champion, right? I think that passive can be very profound if that skill, that A2 ability, is given the proper rework it needs. And by that, I mean adding some CC skills instead of that weaken, or adding a block buffs ability instead of that weaken. Those are all of a sudden, those become things then that can be valuable, I think, for teams, right? But I'm not seeing that right now. And without that, I see zero place for this champion in this game. Whoa. I got to interrupt myself here. Unfortunately, I was pretty hard on this champion when I recorded this video, and I had to come back and just drop in a little insight. I don't disagree with anything I'm saying in this video. I still am a hard pass on this guy. Not going to get him, and I still don't think he's very good. But I think I have to balance that a little bit with some of the things that he can do, because otherwise this just becomes a rant video, and that's not really my style. So yeah, some of you are going to get this guy, and you're going to want to know, how do I use him? And in those cases, I think there's really two clear ways you're going to use him, right? One, you can use him, I think, early game arena, right? If you're really new to this game, or you just haven't advanced your account a lot and you're in the early levels of arena, this guy will definitely be useful. He does two things that are valuable no matter what level you're at. Does a big buff strip with his A2 ability, That's always good. I think there's better champions that do that, and I think there's epics that do that better, but he does do that. That provides some utility for you. And the other thing is his A3 skill that gives you increased accuracy and increased defense or increased attack. I'm probably not giving this as much credit as I should. This is actually a pretty solid skill because no matter what stat your champions use for damage, as long as it's not HP, he's going to make it better in addition to give you increased accuracy. So he becomes a pretty good setup champion for like bomb champs. And I think that is something that can be very useful as well. Still pretty underwhelming, in my opinion, for a legendary champion, because again, I think there's epic champions that can do those things too. There's other legendary champions that do those things and other stuff, so they're better, right? So like in my opinion, he's still pretty underwhelming, still not there. I still think his passive is not effective. But you know, when you're doing, let's say, tag team arena, right? In the early levels of that, might be pretty effective. Just being able to come in and counter some of the revive enemies. Now, I don't think he hits strong enough to even make that viable, even in the earliest areas of tag team arena. But I mean, that's a possibility, right? You could potentially do that. In theory, that's a possibility. I just don't think his multipliers really justify that. But you could put him in a stun set or a sleep set or a provoke set and provide some CC through the RNG of your sets. That's certainly a possibility too. I don't know that that's something I want to rely on in a revive kind of scenario. So that might be one of the reasons why I would be a little bit hesitant to go about things that way also. But that said, you know, you can get multiple attempts at it. And because you're stripping all the buffs anyway, you could land that maybe even on your first attack, and then you can land it on subsequent revives as well. That's not the worst way to go about it. There are some ways to build this champion. There are some areas where you might be able to utilize them to some extent. Maybe he'll be good in things like Bommel, I guess, potentially. He could be good in a couple like Doom Tower spots where that increased accuracy and the increased attack or increased defense can be really useful for you. I just don't think that it's worth going through all this fusion stuff for him, because this one just seems so hard and so tight and so difficult to complete. Doesn't make sense to me. And so in that case, to me, he seems pretty much a 0, right? And if you have anything past an early game account, or, you know, I guess maybe some mid game accounts where you just don't have particular champions, I could see him filling a role for you there. But I really don't see him as much more than a complementary champion, and I don't know that he scales well into the late game at all. So for me, it's a hard pass. As much as I would typically like to do a fusion, as I don't think I've actually ever said I'm going to hard pass on a champion before. I think this is the first time for that for me. I've missed some fusions, but I've never said hard pass. This one is a hard pass for me. So anyway, that's all I really have to say on this, guys. It's a short video, not a lot to say, but I want to be upfront and tell you guys what I'm planning to do. I would love to hear from you guys if you plan on doing this fusion, though. You know, obviously we have some crazy events in the game. Let me see if I can't get to off the test server here. Yeah, so here you can see we have this, obviously this new progressive chance thing is going on, which is, you know, kind of cool. We can add these champions, and we have obviously a few of them. You know, obviously, you know, one of the things people have pointed out is that in this, you have to select multiple champions to do this, which obviously, you know, lowers the pool available even further than it would normally be. But if you don't have some of these champions, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? These are 3 legendaries I don't have. So like, I don't mind adding them to the pool. I think that's all really good for me. You know, that's one of those things. And for voids, I think it's actually a really good deal because you're able to only select one, and that's really going to boost those numbers. So that's a really, you know, much better approach to this. It's interesting that you can choose different champions based on the actual affinity. I think that's actually really great. Or maybe not, you know, affinity, but based on the shard that you're choosing to open. I'm not obviously going to pull any shards here. I just kind of wanted to do that. Or if I do pull shards, I'll do it separately. But it's kind of interesting, right? But like, my issue isn't with that. My issue is going to be with the fragment event that we have going on and the way that it's structured, and the fact that you have to pull all these shards unless you get the +10 on the champion training, which is a joke. Yeah, I mean, the leaderboard stuff, I don't even count that. But it's literally 100 fragments that are being offered. You can't miss anything. You have to compete all of it. Summon Rush event, trying to get 20 fragments, obviously that's going to be a major hurdle for people, right? I mean, we're talking about getting to, what's that, 3,600? I mean, I don't know. That's what, one void and what is that? 7 sacred shards. Not undoable, right? It's not like so wild out there, but it's a lot. Still a lot. And I'm not, even if I end up pulling that many, I don't know that means this is something I'm gonna really want to go for. So that's just where I'm at on it. It's possible I might, back end myself into this just because I play the game pretty much every day. But the champion training event, a lot of points. 8,200 is a lot of points to try to get that. So it's just a lot. And so for me, this is a hard pass. Like I won't be trying to get this champion. I'm not going to be participating in that. Now, whether you guys do that or not, totally up to you. I do think that it's worth getting this champion. I'm not saying that it's not, but I guess I am saying it's not. I'm saying it's not worth getting for right now. It might be worth getting for in the future. And for someone that plays long-term like myself, that's a bet worth making. And for those of you that are long-term players, I would make that bet, right? I would imagine this champion's going to get a rework because that passive is so good. And I feel like they're going to need to start addressing the metas. And that's going to be a natural way to improve that and change things. There's no guarantee, though. And Lord knows they don't make changes quickly in this game. So, take that for what it's worth. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully you found this video interesting. And yeah, until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.